I kind of want to get into like maybe a few like just questions that we can kind of get to ask as far as like where are you from,
Sure.
what do you do, and how long you've been there.
Sure. Well, my name is Devin Carvajal. My role is I am the creative content manager for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've been with the team for a total of 5 seasons, going into I think I'm either going into my fifth or I'm going into my sixth. I can't remember. Um, and I have been in this role now. I'm going into my second year as this role, but I've always been. I started off with the team as an intern in the foundation, and that was I was a senior in college. I was studying graphic design at University of North Florida, and then oh, and I forgot to. I'm from Miami originally, so I'm a Florida boy, born and raised. I am from Miami. I moved up here about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, out of college, like not long after college. And I was approached by a gentleman by the name of Adriel Roca, who's now a VP here at the Jaguars. He's the VP of like foundation and community outreach. Super great guy. He's like one of my mentors now to this day. But he essentially got my foot in the door for me. Like we met at Lulu, and he was just, we didn't like hit, we hit it off. He would come in, I'd help him out, and he was approached me one day and he was like, hey, like I have this role as an intern coming up. Like all you really need to do is like it's not. I know you're a designer, but it's just you're just essentially I'm his business. Like he would just tell me what. He would just point me in the right direction to tell me what to do, and I was like, all right, I could do that. But while I was in there, he presented me with like a lot of really good opportunities to connect with the design team because that's where I wanted to go. So I did a couple. I helped run their Instagram. I kind of get their Instagram running up and running and off the ground. That was like my baby at the time, and I did some social graphics for them, and then I was able to do a couple packaging projects where I got to work with the design team. So I was able to kind of nudge my way in and be like, hey, like I do this, like let me help out, and that was a really good way to get my foot in the door, and I kind of build a rapport with the team, with the graphics team here. The social team like really wasn't what it is now. It's crazy to think how much growth there's been from 4 or 5 years ago, just across social media and in the Jaguars as well. But I was designing a lot of the social media stuff, and it was getting really popular, and we had hired a new guy to come in and be the head of social. His name was Nick Birdsong. And I was kind of working with him a lot. I was kind of doing stuff on my own, like making if there was a meme that popped up or if there was a trend, like I kind of just like hopped on it myself. And I was eventually just got to the point where, I ended up getting hired as a graphic designer. So I started doing more work. After I did my internship, I was just hired flat out full time. And then I started doing all the social stuff, and they were like, hey, Nick came up to me and was like, hey, I'm building a team over here. Like, I think we're going to, why don't you come over and just be our social media graphic designer? So I moved out of design and I moved to social. So then I started doing all the graphics for social, while at the same time I started doing social. I started capturing some photography, video, phone stuff, just the, question of the day, a player arrival, that kind of fly on the wall social media guy. And from there, I just kind of owned that and made the social media my kid. And we've grown so much, and we've added a bunch of people. We have our own videographer now, and so now I'm now a manager now, and I'm in my second year as a manager, and it's been great, and I've been really able to create and.
Kind of speaking on the social media aspect, and then also like your past with graphic design and working within kind of more of a marketing graphic design sense, do you feel like over time of being with the Jaguars and maybe just in general, do you feel like it's almost become where, because it kind of sounds like what you're saying is that like with the social media, it's almost like become a own department in a way.
No, I totally get what you're saying, and I think it obviously is different because I'm not in this, like, I'm not solely in the, because we have a design department, right? And um, I'm over here. I work very hand in hand with the designers. We all communicate often, and a lot of times we're sharing assets amongst each other, or we have a meeting every week. So I'm still very much in the design world because my that's my bread and butter. And that's like really what I'm doing is I still am a creator at the end of the day. Um, but yeah, it's just grown so much where, like, if you want good design, if you want good social, you really do need to have someone there ready to make stuff. Before I was in this role, it was like the process was like you would, and this isn't just the Jaguar specifically, but I've heard this same similar uh, kind of like marching orders from other teams where like you would put in a request with the design team and then they would get to it, right? But I think nowadays I'm starting to see more and more of like social media designers, social coordinators, like having those kind of like Swiss Army knife people or people that are solely designers, because you need to be fast in this game. Like,
Yeah.
you want to be, I get a lot of pride from being the first team to post a meme or a trend or hop on a trend. You know what I mean? That's something that we value here, like being first and starting that trend, so that way it's always, oh yeah, they did it first, you know what I mean? Or, oh man, like nobody could say that we're biting it, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
not to say that every trend is like that we all like kind of look at that, but I'm very competitive. I take my career as competitive. I was never an athlete, actually. I was the worst athlete ever. All my siblings were, but I still find a way to be competitive in this stuff. So I kind of see it as a game, and but it's fun, and there's nothing else I'd rather be doing.
Cool. So then when it comes to Sunday, like what does that look like for the
Sure.
team?
No, Sundays, man. Sundays are super interesting. I really wish I could speak more on like what it's like for other people who have maybe a similar role to me, so I can maybe give like some kind of context. But I guess what I do, the entire social team is that we're there on Sunday. By then I've already kind of created what's going out on our social channels for, like, it's either, we have a lot of sponsored assets that have to go out, or sponsored posts like, Fired Up Friday or the uniform reveal. I've kind of,
Yeah.
all that stuff's kind of been rolled out. And then there's like the game day poster, maybe a fun kind of more like kind of cool edit that's got a bit more juice to it. Um, Sunday, I'm not really doing much designing unless, I usually am not. I usually should have everything prepared by then. We usually get in at, say it's a 1 o'clock game, we'll get in at around maybe 7:30, 8. Um, I'll come in, I'll make sure I have all my marching orders in order. And I still do some content capturing. So we'll talk about who's going to be where, who's going to get player arrivals, who's going to be on the field, who's going to be up in the booth. I sit right next to my social media manager, Charlie Jordan. We've both kind of come up together, and he's more on the publishing side. So, but I'll be down, since I'm not up there having the design. I'm kind of serve as a capturer. So, I'm on the field and I'm getting arrivals. Maybe I'm walking around the stadium, just getting footage of fans, or, if we have a TikTok, or maybe we have an influencer in town. And then I pretty much stay down on the field until about the time game starts, or after the national anthem. I go upstairs and I sit in the press box and I watch the game, and I am updating the score graphics as they are happening live. So usually it's like quarter one, quarter two. I'm looking at photography. Um, and then then we have a whole strategy of, okay, if we win, what does that look like? If we lose, what does that look like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure. What's one good thing you took away from that bad experience?
A lot of times the bad experiences I have, man, come from like either it's like internally, like I have beef with the dude in the office across from me or something, or like it's something that's like out of my control. So like maybe, when I was here, okay, so I was here when Urban Meyer was coach here, and
Okay.
that really wasn't the best time in Jaguars football history. And it was my first time in social, and that was a tough experience for me. It was I was just in social, and we were just getting bashed. We couldn't post a thing without getting, just stop tweeting, stop this. So like, I learned quickly that you have to stop reading. Like if you work in social, like if you, I mean, like it's important to read, but sometimes, man, it can just be toxic. So you have to learn to disconnect and not take it personally.
Apple or PC?
Oh, Apple, no, no doubt. Sorry,
Favorite Adobe program?
Photoshop.
Nice.
Photoshop's my baby.
What is one thing you are working on that is getting you amped?
If I could tell you what we're working on, I would. I got a few projects in the works. We're working on our schedule release video right now, which is coming up in a few weeks. We're almost done. Super excited. That's like social media Super Bowl for NFL teams. Like NFL
Sweet.
socials are like that's our day to really flex. And I hope that you get to I hope that you pay attention that day and see where everybody does. But
Yeah.
we had a great schedule release last year, and we're gonna have a great schedule release this year. So I'm super amped on that. And then I have a couple other projects that I'm pretty juiced about.
That's sweet. What's your biggest pet peeve when it comes to creativity?
My biggest pet peeve when it comes to creativity, I would say just make it. You know, like we graphic designers. I feel like don't realize the like we like not like it's all editable. You know, if you
Yeah.
really don't think you can do something or make something, like you're not trying hard enough. But also don't like go find it yourself. Like if you don't know the answer, like you know how many YouTube University, bro. Like I went to school for graphic design. Like in reality, we don't really even need graphic design degrees
Right.
if you think about that. Like you just need to have a subscription to Creative Cloud and YouTube because that's pretty much how I got through college.
Yeah.
But
What's one piece of advice that you would give somebody coming into the industry, whether it's sports or even graphic design?
you're just coming in and say you want to work in sports or in sports graphic design. If you want to work in social, just be a sponge and be a Swiss Army knife at the same time. Be a
Hmm.
spongy Swiss Army knife because that's kind of what I was coming in. I was, I took on those projects that maybe were a bit inconvenient. I was open to learning. I learned how to use a camera. Like, just don't don't put yourself in a pigeonhole just yet because you don't come to a point in your career where you have to decide which direction you want to go in, and you'll figure that part out. But when you get in, when you're early on, when you're in the intern role, maybe even the coordinator role, don't be afraid to do or try other things because there's going to be a point where you're going to come to no return. You're either going to be past the point of return where you need to figure it out, or you're never going to figure it out. And
Yeah.
you're going to be mediocre at maybe 10 things when you can be good at like one thing, really good at
Yeah.
one thing. So I'm mediocre at about five, everything else, but I'm really good at Photoshop. I like to think. So figure it out.
Go to food in your city.
Besides like a regular chain, like something
Yeah.
local that like I'll
Yeah,
go to
local.
anytime is probably local Delicom right across the street from my
Okay.
house. It's like this little breakfast, like
Hmm.
locally owned. It's like I walk to it every morning. It's like I go catch the sunrise and I'll walk and go get a coffee, and that's my jam. I get a Mr. Loco on an everything bagel.
Yeah.
I should own stock in that place for the amount of money I spend there.
So thank you for your time, Devin. Thanks for joining me on Rapid Fire.
Of course.
Is there a place that people can find you and follow you?
Yeah, of course. I am all over the place. I'm a social man. You can find me on my normal Instagram. That's my main. It's my main page. Carvajal Creative. And if you want to see my portfolio, just follow me on at Jaguars and just see what we're posting because it's a good chance I've touched it to some extent. So
Sweet.
it's really it for me. I'm on
Well-
Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I used to have a Club Penguin. That's all I got.
Well, thank you for your time with that.